Right, let's try this fourth time round again. Madness, absolutely. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this properly, and this keeps cutting out on me and telling me this and that. Is this going live again? I'm not even sure. Let me just double check. Right, I can see one eye there. Wow. This has taken me so long to get this going, you know. It's taken me so long. I tagged so many people in the first one and then found out after 15 minutes it wasn't running. And then done it again. And Facebook just said, oh, broadcast failed, blah, blah. This is a madness just to do things for a couple of amps, you know, for a few amps. But yeah. Let me wait for a few people to come in the lawn so that I can do this and give you a review of last night's test. Yeah, so big up Owen. Nice to see you. I'm live, whatever, at least it's running now. It's taken me over half an hour, where all it should take me is 2 minutes, push a button and you're live. It's taken me over half an hour to now get this up, you know, so it's a bit annoying, but still, there you go. I'm going to wait for a few people to come along because I know there's a few people who want to know and would like to hear about last night's shootout that we had. So I want to big up Cousin Ren, APS Sound. Thank you very much. That was it was a wicked session, and it did go on. The next thing we look at the clock, and boy, it was nearly 3 o'clock in the morning. So we dig deep and have discussions. So big up Strokey and Scratchy, who was also there as well. Mullins and Roger, who was also there as well. And yeah, we did have some discussions about the amps, as well as, you know, put them through some stages. There was some I have to say, some very interesting, it was very interesting. So let me just wait for a couple of people. Big up Young Star, nice to see you. Big up Ebony, glad you're there. Nice to see you as well. It's afternoon time. I'm not going to play no music in the background because I want to give up a proper review on these amps today. I don't want anything Facebook to say you've got music in the background, we're going to take it down. So I want to give a proper review. So if you just give me a few minutes for a few people to come along, because as I said, I know there's a few people on the lawn. I couldn't tag anybody this time because Facebook seemed to be stopping me tagging people in the video, otherwise it wouldn't have been able to come up. So just let a couple of people come along, and then I'll give you the story on last night anyway. You know, very interesting that, you know, these days it's gone from 3U or 4U to, you know, originally to 3U to 2U, and now down to 1U in an amp space. And it's very interesting when it comes down to internal components, of what can last and what's going to last for about a year, 2 years. You know, there's a lot of arguments about different things. So, you know, it's interesting. It is very interesting. So, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let me not chat about fresh air no more. Let's get on with it. Okay. We had big up Elton. Nice to see you in the afternoon. We had the Elements Audio CK26. As people know, you know, I've been pushing that one a piece. I've had a couple of them at my house. That one's 2600 watts at 8 ohms, if I remember rightly, and 42 at 4 ohms. And we done all the tests last night was at 4 ohms. We did them for all 3 amps at 4 ohms. All 3 amps are 2 ohms stable. So we wanted to do them at 4 ohms to give all 3 amps enough headroom to find out. Basically, it wasn't a power test. It wasn't a power test. It was a tone frequency capability test, basically. So rather than, you know, what certain sounds do is hook up an amp and then push it hard for volume and rare. It wasn't about the power. It was about the tone is what we done the 3 amps. So the 3 amps was the Elements Audio CK26, 2600 at 8 ohms, 4200 at 4 ohms. And then we had the K30, which if I'm correct, I think that's 3000, I think at 8 and 5.1 at 4 or something like that, something similar like that. And as Ebony showcased, we had the CVR 3002, not the new one, the 302, but the one behind that, the 3002, which again I think is 3000 at 8 ohms and something like 5000 at 4 ohms, but mad power basically in them amplifiers. So the way I look at, the way I and others from UK and other countries look at that, if you're going to buy an amplifier with that amount of power, then to me, you're buying that amplifier as a bass amplifier. You're not buying that amplifier to play mid and tops. It's nice that, you know, if it can do it, it's nice, you know, but really and truthfully, you're buying that amplifier to run your bottom end. So, you know, if you can get good clarity with that amplifier as well, you know, even better still. Yeah, even better still. Okay, right. Now, our tests that we done was on both sides of the coin with digital on my laptop and with vinyl on Ren's vinyl deck. So we got to hear all 3 amps on both sides of the coin, which as it turns out was very interesting, because that ended up bringing out certain bits more in certain amplifiers. So it was very interesting, I have to say. Miss Helen Lai from CVR, I'll say this. I'll say that your amp, I have to say, pleasantly surprised me. And I hold my hands up, and I'll give you a call or an email, because your amp did pleasantly surprise me, I have to say. So, right, if we go into it, right, overall, we'll start. I was very surprised with the CVR for clarity on the top end and presence on the top end, even though it's a bass amp. They bill it as a bass amp. It had a lot of presence and it was very clean at the top end. It was cleaner than the other two, not a heap cleaner, but, you know, as a sound person and blah, 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 you could hear more presence in the vocal area on the CVR, which was very, it did surprise me. It did surprise me that the CVR had that there, to be honest. From what I've heard on videos, it did surprise me. And, you know, we did it with proper frequency, we did it with proper set, you know, through Ren's set. So everything was set same levels for each amp. So it was very surprising. I mean, the K30 mid-high, that played clean and nice as well. The CK26 mid-high, that played clean and high as well. So them amps that have power behind them can be built to play good mid-high. But that's not actually what they're built for, but they can be built to sound good in them areas. But that, if we're talking about, you know, out of the 3 amps, for that section, then yeah, I would put the CVR in first place. And the 6 of us who was there last night, we all agreed on that the CVR top end, yeah, for true. Not, and like I said, I wouldn't say it was by a whole heap, but you could hear it. You could hear the presence, which, like I say, Helen, yeah, you'll hear from me. You'll be smiling, yeah, because I was very pleasantly surprised with that. Now, as I said, as on the bass side of things, now this is where this gets interesting, because on the bass side of things, and I've heard, you know, videos of the CVR. I never had one in my hands until, you know, last night. And on the bass side of things, with the CVR, it does play a nice bass line to a certain point. Now, in other countries, such as, you know, the US of A, some sounds in Jamaica, wherever, even in the UK, okay? You have sound systems that just, you know, like to concentrate on 60, 70 hertz upwards, you know, and loud bass. And there ain't nothing wrong with that if that's how you like to play your sound system. With the CVR, I found that listening to it, and we wasn't pushing that to a degree like you would push it on a set of 18s or double 18s or 21s or 24s. We was doing this for tone. So what I was hearing with the CVR was it sounded very capable and very nice at 50, 60 hertz. When it was hitting in my ears, round about, I would say 40, 45, 42, you could hear the volume was then reducing on that amp. And you could hear it couldn't take. It could, once you start hit the serious sub bass like sounds over here like to play, that the amp, and I'm not degrading the amp whatsoever, okay? Let's get this correct. I'm not degrading the amp whatsoever, but the amp will not handle 35 hertz. It will not handle 35 hertz on 18-inch speakers, on 21-inch speakers. It will not do it. It's not capable of doing that efficiently. It will not do that. It will play down, it will play nicely. It will play very nicely down to 50, 60 hertz, in my opinions, steadily carry on and put some volume with that, put some decibels with that as well, okay? But if you're dropping that lower than that and you're in a park or you're in a big hall or you're in something like so, that amp will, underneath 50, 45 hertz, it will struggle to push your drivers and push them cleanly, in my opinion. And like I said, I am not degrading the amp, because the amp on the mid and the top is absolutely clean. I'm not degrading the amp at all. Those who want to go and buy it, you will get good results out of it, but you have to run it correctly. And that's all there is with that CVR. We'll come back to that. Now, the K30 itself, 3,000, I think, and 5.1. So, and yes, that amp there, Morin, I can never remember the name of the main factory, but it's a Morin amp, K30. Now, that amp there, mid and top, like the CK26, both play very good, very nice, clear, clean mid-top, with not as much presence as the CVR in the mid-top end, but not far behind and not degrading them amps on mid-top end. Very good still, very good sounding. Couldn't hear no mushiness or no flappiness, you know, very, very good sounding. Yeah, still. I think the K30 was just a touch better than the CK26, and I enjoyed the CK26, so I'm being very, very honest with my opinions here. Yeah, I think the K30 was just a touch, not much in it at all on the top section with the CK26. Now, when we go to the bass section on the K30, that dropped very well. I have to say, that dropped very well. Yeah, it managed to drop in the low end, and you could hear behind it, it still had more to give. So it dropped very nicely. It had an altogether tone about it. It was a nice drop in that amp. Yeah, overall. So the K30 and this the power, the strength was there. When it was hitting the notes, I could hear that it still had more to give. So it was handling them notes. It was handling them notes for true. Yeah, and the tone, I feel the tone with it, the tone was nice. Could have been a little bit better, but the tone was nice. It rolled well. So you could take that amp outside, put it on bass with 21s, 24s, 18s, and that, to me, that amp would handle that, would handle it. My only thing with that amp, yeah, is, you know, it's just a preference thing. My only thing with it is I've heard little things, little bits. So, you know, and looking, I've already seen the insides, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, little bits and pieces. This is just getting technical. I would like to buy, me personally, when I buy an amp, I want an amp to last me for a while. I don't want an amp to last me 3 years and then little bits and pieces inside might, and let me get this right, might, okay? Because I don't want to downgrade the amp. It may be wicked inside, but looking at certain things, I'm not too certain, you know? So I would like an amp to last me more than 3 years, basically, yeah? Maybe they've managed, with what they've done with that now, to upgrade things a little so that they would last, you know, because a few of them earlier one new amps, as people know, you know, bit brittle inside and wouldn't last you no more than a couple of years. Personally, as a sound man, when I get an amp, I want an amp to last me. Yeah, I don't want an amp to be, in 2 years, I've got to think, boy, I've got to send it back, I've got to rare. I don't want none of that, yeah. So the K30 impresses me very much sound-wise, and that inside, bit dubious, but as I said, I could be totally wrong, and it might now be upgraded to be a lasting amp. So it's worth taking a look at. Now we'll go over to the Elements Audio. Now the Elements Audio, as I know, you know, and I'm going to say this, I personally put it up on Facebook that Elements Audio I would put against anything but the PowerSoft, and it would stand up against anything but the PowerSoft, and maybe even beat anything but the PowerSoft. I did put that there personally. Yeah. Last night, that's what I was doing all night. It was That's exactly how it went, for true. Top section wise, the Elements Audio did what it did, and as Ben said, he built it as a bass amp. So top section wise, it is very clean, it is very nice, it is very clear, just like the K30. Yeah, it's not muddy, it does the top section very nicely, but it is not built as a top section amp. Yeah, so I will still give it good marks on the top section, without that. And those who was with me last night gave it good marks on the top section, gave all 3 amps good marks on the top sections. It was just that Helen's CVR did win slightly because of more presence on the top section. On the bass section, and we all agreed on this, on the bass section, the Elements audio went with it. The Elements audio, at the end of the day, when it came down to 4 ohms on the bass, it did, for one, it dropped the notes just absolutely lovely. You could hear them notes and the presence in the roll. Yeah, the tone, the roll, the depth, the whole shebang. Now, the K30 wasn't far behind. I'm not going to say that the Elements audio trounced the K30. It didn't, because the K30 still had the power. It still had some strength, but you could tell that at 4 ohms, even at 4 ohms, it was rolling to a certain point, but where the CK26 just took over and gave more of a defined bass, more of a controlled bass, you know, and you could hear that presence. But again, I cannot take that away from the K30, because the K30 played really well as well on bass end, for true. So what we ended up coming up with was basically, right, before I give you, you know, the final results, we did a few hours with all 3 amps, and the Elements audio kept touching the sides, stone cold, fine. The fan's a bit loud, nothing serious at all. You turn your music on, you ain't hearing them fans, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, but it stayed absolutely lovely temperature, nice and cold for the whole session. Okay, so that didn't have a problem. The K30, again, now that's a 1U, so less space, so more work to do to keep that temperature down, in my opinion. But, you know, 1U amps they're building now, it can be done. And the K30 did prove that last night, because that stayed at a decent temperature. Okay? Now, what you have to consider is, last night we done a few, you know, but each amp was taking a break. So it wasn't as if though each amp was drawing continuous signal for 6 hours so we could get proper temperature reading. Yeah, which may obviously differ. But, you know, it gave us a rough idea. Now, when it came to the CVR, and again, I'm going to say this is no hatred, this is no nothing on any of the amps, okay? So let's get this right. When it came to the CVR, what I did notice was that with the CVR, it did heat up slightly in that session, which made me think, really, considering, and Ren himself said it, we was playing that amp at 4 ohms. We wasn't playing that amp at 2 ohms. We was giving the amp plenty headroom. We was giving the amp actual sleeping time. So, you know, you was being turned down and weren't working while the other 2 did work. But yet, the amp still heated up. Not as into a point such as the RMX 2450 kind of heating, you know, but it still heated up slightly. Now, that does make me think a piece about how hot that amp might get. And again, I'm going to say this, I could be wrong, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm running down any amp, okay? It does make me think that if you push an amp like that for 6 to 8 straight hours without, you know, no breaks, no nothing, pushing signal, is that amp actually going to keep taking that pressure that you're after, or will it slowly start cut that down and cut back? Now that's very interesting for me technically. You know, I'm thinking this as a theory. You know, that the amp played a bit, and then it had a break, and then it played a bit again, and then it had a break. Now, to me, you know, unless you're a QSC RMX or one of them amps from back in the day, you know, you should not really be heating up in that type of session. And again, it didn't heat up hard, but it did heat up. So it does make me think a lot that the CVR, I personally don't think it can push as much wattage cleanly and clearly as what is stated. And that is no hatred on the amp, because the amp does play good. It does play well. But personally, I don't think it pushes all that what is stated on bass frequencies. You know, the amp is a good amp. Don't get me wrong. Helen, if you're watching secretly, the amp is a good amp. Okay? But I honestly think there's a couple of things that you need to look at there to make it a better. Let's get it. It's not a rubbish amp. It's not a mid of the road amp. It is a good amp. But I do think there are things there that you need to look at to make it a better amp. Simple as that. Now, if we come down to the results, if you want to put it that way, the results of the shootout. Top end went. This is seriously funky, right? I'm going to show you this. The top end shootout thing. Big up cousin Ren. You know everything I'm saying. I'll go over everything again, but the top end shootout actually went to CVR. So you know, big up Helen. As I said, I'm gonna email you. I'm gonna message you. I'll send you the video. You have my word. Your amp did sound nice to a certain point for true. Yeah, and there is nothing wrong with the CVR amp. It is a good amp. But for us over here, maybe, you know, maybe in the USA, Jamaica, or even other sounds over here, you know, that like to play higher, louder bass, then that amp there is nothing wrong with your amp, Helen. Let's get that correct. But for depth and for the amount of decibels and power you're talking about in the CVR amp, it will not cut the depth that we are talking about when you're talking under 40 hertz. And it was proven last night. And please, Helen, please, if you are watching, again, I'm going to say it again, CVR is a good amp, okay? It's not a hatred thing, yeah? And if you are watching, yeah, it's not, we did not have a fake version CVR, okay? These are all honest opinions. So don't say that I'm doing a hatred thing and I got out a fake version CVR and I'm only doing this because I dislike CVR, okay? I don't want to hear that. That is total rubbish. Yeah, this was a proper test, no bias, no nothing. And that's how it is. So CVR did win the top section for their presence, for the clarity and everything. The other two, let's get this correct, wasn't far behind at all. But CVR had more presence in the mid-high. Very nice in that section. So they won that. The bass went to Elements Audio. Very nice in the bass, very rolling, very controlled. Have to give that to Elements Audio. Overall, the K30 took it. How about that, eh? How about that? Because, and simply because, the K30 on top, because as Cousin Ren said last night, the K30 ticked all the right boxes, basically, okay? Just above, right? The K30 just, and I'll say it again, and I said it earlier, after listening to the videos, after being there live, the K30 just was a bit clearer and cleaner than the CK26. So therefore it got the point for that. The CK26 did just beat the K30 for bass. So the CK26 got the point for that. The K30 now, all honesty, step backwards, how you like to look at it and how you run your set and how you are in your mind, the K30 wins simply because of price plan. Now, before we, when we're going to go a little further, and I'm going to speak to you about certain things, but because of the price of the K30, that is why that third box was ticked, and the K30 won that shootout. Simple as that. All 3 amps, good amps, very good amps, yeah, depending on what you want to do. Okay? It's as simple as that. Now, let me show you something, yeah? When I say an amp is basically, that the K30 won the shootout because of the price, okay? You have to remember, and a lot of sound man know this already, so it depends on how you like to look at it, how you are, okay? You have to remember about components and build quality and blah, blah, blah. And you have to remember that certain amps are built with certain components which are cheaper than other made components which would last you longer. Yeah, and boards are made differently which will last you longer. So, let's say you bought a K30 or a CVR 3002 or a CK26. Now, out of the 3 amps, yeah, the CK26 is the most expensive, right? The K30 is the cheapest, and the CVR is in the middle, okay? Now, you say to yourself, well, the CVRs are one, I like to use blah, 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 but look at the price difference. Well, think about this. If you buy, and this was said last night, and I totally agree because we have seen the internals of all 3 amps. So I totally agree with this. The CK26, I guarantee you, okay, like any other make of amp, whether it be Crown, QSC, Power, Soft, Rare, any amp might go wrong along the way, yeah, for whatever reason, yeah. But I guarantee you that in 15 to 20 years' time, that CK26, like the old school QSCs, like the old school Crowns and Rare, is still playing you music good and playing it solidly and playing them frequencies you want solidly. And I'm going to say this, and again, let me say it straight up, no hatred on no company. You understand me? But for me, with the CVR and the K30 as well, both of them, I will say, yeah, in between 3 to 5 years, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at problems, and you know what? I don't want none of that. Me personally. So if that means that I have to pay a couple of £100 extra for an amp, for the build quality, for the internals, and the life expectancy, then you know what? I personally am doing it. But again, I'm not degrading anybody who actually thinks or builds their sound systems differently. If you do it differently to me, big up yourself each time. Every man is different. You understand? That is just my way of looking at that. That is how I like to build my sound. So after last night, I can say, you know, big up CVR, very good amp. Big up Morin, or whatever the factory name, I can't say it in English word, yeah, but big up Morin every time, very good amp indeed. And at that price, it is hard, it is hard to bypass at that price, because after hearing it, yeah, for true. But again, me personally, yeah, I know where I'm going, because if you're talking bass amp, and that is why if an amp has that amount of power, then I am buying that amp as a bass amp. I don't really want to buy that as a full range amp to play bass and tops. I want to buy that amp as a bass amp. And to me, the CK26 will do that and take the others. Yeah, and will last me for years and years. And that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me, for true. Yeah. So I big up their Elements Audio team, because that amp built what it's supposed to do, does it very efficiently and very nicely without problems. And I big up the Morin team, because that amp itself, after hearing it, it did surprise me. It did surprise me, yeah. It did surprise me very much, depth-wise, and it was clean. It was very clean. I'd heard it once on a video, and it didn't sound that clean, but it was very clean, yeah. So that one did surprise me. And the CVR, I have to give a big thumbs up to on the top end, because the presence on that amp it shocked me. It had me, you know, stepping back. I was surprised by the presence on that. And I have to say, big up Cousin Ren, because everything was done fairly. All settings was done the same for each tune, for every record, every time we changed the amps. So there was no advantages for no amp. And that is exactly how we like to do it, yeah? Ben, I can see you there, and I know you're a respectable man, so you know that when I'm sitting here chatting about this, I'm only going to say the truth, yeah? And I know you know me and you's close, yeah? But I'm not going to be biased, and I'm going to speak it as it is. And that is how it should be in our sound systems game, you understand? If Helen was there and I was speaking like this, Helen should be like yourself, and you hear what you hear and you understand what you understand. It's as simple as that. Last night's test was a proper fair test. It was done on a proper fair system with proper, let's get it correct. It was not done with 18s or 21s or anything like that. It was a tone test. We didn't need to test them amps for power. Because if you're a sound man, you know them amps won't give you that power on a regular basis for a long time. So it was more about the tone and the presence in the amp and what it could do with the headroom it had at 4 ohms. Yeah, each amp, which to me is a fair test for any amp. I don't care if man says, yeah, you have to test it down to 2 ohms, you have to test it down to 2. Why? Why do you need to test it as loud? We could hear volume difference last night and we didn't even push the volumes to as loud as they could go because we was testing certain frequencies. You could hear that at certain points that the K30 didn't have the volume that the CVR had, but at the bottom end, you could hear much more presence. And although the CVR had more volume, again, yeah, but it had more clarity and presence at the high end. So, yeah, you know, it didn't need to be about power. Because as far as I'm concerned, you know, the numbers thing, numbers is numbers. You have to, when you get an amplifier, you have to, you know, sometimes bypass them numbers and look at other things. And then find out what that amp can actually do for what you want it to do. Otherwise, don't buy it. And then screw about it. You know, that's the thing. Don't buy it and then screw about it. I've done it myself. And luckily, the reason I didn't screw about it after was because I'd made my money back in the short time I had the amps. So I done it myself, yeah. But don't go doing them things. I'm buying amp expecting it to do X, Y, and Z. If you know that there might be, you know that's peak figure. That's not regular figure. You understand? And things like that. So there's a lot of men out there who, you know, need to learn certain things and not degrading no one at all. Because we each need, we all need to learn, you know, this and that. There's always something new to learn in this game. But there's enough men who, you know, they like to talk like they know everything, but you still need to step back and you need to look and you need to listen and you need to learn and then don't brag and boast. You know what I mean? It's a simple thing. Last night's test out, it was wicked. It was excellent and it was well worth doing as far as I'm concerned. And as far as I'm concerned, we ain't finished yet because, boy, there's a lot of technology coming out and the 4-channel amps are coming out as well. So my next plan is to get hold of a few of the good 4-channel amps so that we can have a little 4-channel shootout as well. And hopefully, and fingers crossed, hopefully the COVID thing will start die down. We can find a little venue. I'm looking into this over the next couple of weeks and we're going to find a little venue. And we're not going to be actually putting on dances. This shall be as in like last night shall be shootout kind of things. Box shootouts and amp shootouts basically. So where we invite each other over so we can have a few people come and, you know, have a legal something in a little legal hall and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to keep my eye on that. I'm working on that at the moment so that all the sound community can come together still. But as I said last night, in 3rd place, the CVR. In 2nd, just, I'm going to say that, the Elements Audio. But in 1st place, congratulations, big up the K30. That is the order that it came in. I gave you the reasons why that was the order. So hopefully, you know, everybody's happy with them reasons. If you have any questions, all you have to do is just message me. But hopefully during this long video, and this is the first time I've done a video without music, you know, so big up Facebook, can't tell me nothing for this one. But that was the result. It was a wicked session. Again, you know, big up Strokey and Scratchy and Mullins who brought up the amps for us to have the test sweeps up. Big up you gents each and every time. Yeah, enough respect you. Cannot and have to big up Cousin Ren, APS Sound, one of the cleanest, if not the cleanest sound in the United Kingdom. Yes, don't embarrass. Yeah, but big up Cousin Ren, he made it happen. Thank you very much. Enough respect you. We'll do it again for definite. Big up all the sound men. I hope that this helps you with a few questions and blah, blah, blah. David, I already chatted to you. Nice to see you. I'm going to finish the video and it will stay up so you can watch it again and blah, blah, blah. Big up all the sound men, yeah. Like I said, thank you very much. And I'm going to say this before I finish, yeah. In our game, there is enough room for one and all. You understand me? There is enough space for all of us to work together. I am seeing much too much bad-mindedness in our game lately. And I want this to cool down, yeah, because we unite together as soundmen, as people who do things with music and instruments and boxes and ting and ting and ting. You understand me? We don't need to be stabbing each other in the back and cussing each other over things such as amplifiers or equalizers or speaker boxes. You don't need to go and fall out with man over that and tell man I'm going to do you this and that. No. This game here, this game is about love and unity, and if you can earn from it, wicked. But you know what? More than that, it's about togetherness, you understand? That's what we do. And that's why I do it. I do it to share the love so we can spread the vibe. You understand? Simple as that. From me, Father Chalky, Simple Things Audio. Bless up everybody. Stay safe, stay secure. Gone again.